New podcast out with my friend Rachel Stevenson. It's a good one. We kind of divert from the typical business podcast. Rachel's a teacher in the town I live in, and we got to know each other years ago, but was also very helpful in my marathon training. And we kind of discuss how she got into teaching, her path through it, and then some of the roles of athletics played in her life and career. But we also dive into some parenting stuff, which is always interesting from the perspective of a teacher. It's a cool podcast, and new podcast out with my friend Rachel Stevenson. It's a good one. We kind of divert from the typical business podcast. Rachel's a teacher in the town I live in, and we got to know each other years ago, but was also very helpful in my marathon training. And we kind of discuss how she got into teaching, her path through it, and then some of the roles of athletics played in her life and career. But we also dive into some parenting stuff, which is always interesting from the perspective of a teacher. It's a cool podcast, and I really encourage you to check it out and give us your feedback. Thanks so much. Welcome back to Beers and Careers. Today's guest, Rachel Stevenson.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the old podcast. Even though you think you have nothing to offer, I bet you're going to look back and be like, I'm so happy I did this.
Okay.
Well, that's my goal.
Okay.
At least. But before we dive into it, we have like a Beers and Careers tradition where we just ask people a couple rapid fires so that we understand a little bit more about them.
Okay.
And it is Beers and Careers. What is your favorite cocktail or drink?
I'm pretty seasonal, so right now I'll go with like a spicy margarita. But in the winter, it might be something more like a dark and stormy or something rum, maybe.
Okay.
But right now,
so you switch
margarita.
it up. You switch it up. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's 9 a.m. This might be the earliest Beers and Careers episode.
It's like midday for me.
Yes, so we're having coffee.
Yes.
It's like
I already had 2 coffees.
It's like midday for me. So no Bloody Marys this morning. But I know Cora's here, but do you have a favorite curse word?
Well, now, so I've been teaching for this, I'm going into 19 years. So as a teacher, you learn how to mute it all during the year. In the summer, it's a little different. Usually like June, I'm hitting the ball poorly in golf and I'll say sugar, but then by like July or August, it's shit.
So you can flip it on and off?
Well, you have to not swear in your classroom.
I know. Do you struggle in the fall?
No.
No, you're 18 years.
Yeah.
You've got it dialed.
Yeah.
Are you a quote person?
I have a quote that I've had since college that my coach told us we had a couple undersized people on the team, and she was always saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. So that's something that myself and a few other of my teammates kind of took with us. Us in life, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we were terriers, so
it was
dog
perfect.
in the fight.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
It's funny, that was shared with me in high school as well, because I was a really tiny little kid in high school. And I think Archie Griffith said that.
Okay.
Because I looked it up. I was like all into it. I think he was a football player, but I love that.
Right. Yeah.
I may or may not have said that recently to a young hockey team when we were playing a bunch of bigger kids. I was like, guys, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I love that. What was your first job?
When I grew up in Maryland and I lived close to the mall. So when and you can get your license at 15 3/4 in Maryland. So and 16 you can drive anytime, anywhere. So I think when I turned 15 3/4, I immediately drove to the mall and filled out a bunch of applications, and I got a job at Sam Goody Records. I don't know if you remember Sam Goody. And so I worked there through high school.
Why the record store?
They just called me back.
They were the first one?
Yeah.
And you're like, I just need money.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
A teacher, this is probably a hard question, but favorite book? Or book you want to share with people?
Yeah, that's hard. It's like picking your favorite child.
I know.
Which I have right now. But I will say, I loved teaching The Great Gatsby. It's so rich, and there's so much to talk about, even though it's only 172 pages.
You love teaching The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I can't think of anything more recent.
that like
Yeah.
So like you grew up in Maryland, which I think I did know, but background, Rachel shepherded me through the Boston Marathon and a group of women in town. So I feel like I probably heard that on a run at some point. But you grew up in Maryland, and then I know you went to BU, Terriers, obviously.
Yeah.
How'd you make that decision?
I grew up, I had a ton of energy, played every sport, and I knew I wanted to go to school, like I wanted to explore. So I wanted to go somewhere further away, and I looked at some schools, and I could have played D3 basketball and D1 lacrosse. So I was like, okay, where can I go play D1 lacrosse and get a good education? And I wanted a big school. So I was looking at BU in Syracuse, and I just felt like I liked the city. I liked that there are so many job opportunities when you're there at school, but also like you just meet so many different kinds of people. I grew up right outside DC. So I'm used to like on half days we'd go into Georgetown.
Yeah.
So I was used to the city kind of life, and so I wanted to do that. And BU, was like, yeah, sure, come play for us. So it worked out.
That's not the Syracuse vibe.
Syracuse is, I went there and it was like April something and it was still snowy everywhere. And it was really cool. Like I remember I saw Donovan McNabb warming up in the Carrier Dome and like the sports vibe was strong, but at the same time it just felt very remote.
Yes.
And I knew I wanted to be, or once I went to visit BU, I was like, okay, this feels good.
Urban. Cool. Yeah. And did you go to BU knowing you wanted to be an educator?
No. I always liked sports and coaching, and I always liked English, reading, writing, all that. So I went to school. I got an undergraduate degree in journalism with a minor in English.
Okay.
And then I just stayed on at BU, got a job there and in communications, and then got my graduate degree in education while I was working there.
What were you doing in communications?
I was like working in their like sports communication department, like writing articles about their teams on their website.
Okay. And when you like do that, when you took that role, are you like just doing it because you know you need a job while you're getting your graduate degree, or did like it interest you, or was it?
Yeah, I was always interested in sports, interested in writing or being in some kind, maybe broadcasting, something like that. I did internships in college at ABC in DC and got to follow the Redskins around. That was really cool. And then I worked for the Globe part-time when I was in college doing just like little sports bits. Writing about the high school swimming championship, calling coaches and stuff like that. But then once I got out of college, I was like, I don't want to be writing about sports. I want to be coaching the sports or participating. So that led to figuring out what I wanted to do with coaching, but also, I love reading, I love writing. Could I get into like teaching this? So that kind of led me down that path.
So was like full-time coaching on the table for you?
Not yet. I didn't dive right into that, but when I graduated BU, I got jobs through like Mass Elite, the club program, and I coached at Newton Country Day for a couple years. And then when I got my first teaching job in Ashland, they didn't have a varsity program yet, so I took them from club to varsity.
Okay. Lacrosse. Awesome.
Yeah.
So after you get your graduate degree, your first teaching gig is Ashland?
Yeah, I did my student teaching in Lexington, which was amazing. I mean, such a great district to get your student teaching in. And then
Why do you say that as someone who doesn't understand it?
Lexington's a wonderful district, and they have just
great school system.
Great school system, a lot of diversity, but also just like everyone there is focused on like getting a good education. So coming out of there in interviewing, it's like I had a good background just to start off with.
Yes.
And I lucked out. Instead of getting a job for the fall, I sent out applications in the spring, and they had a long-term sub position in Ashland for June. And I took it. It was like a 3-week gig, and then that turned into full-time.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
It's hard to move school systems, right?
Yes.
This is not like
the older you get and the more years experience, yes, you're a desirable hire because you have the experience, but at the same time, you're more expensive. So good districts will hire you, but districts don't have a lot of money. They're looking to hire younger teachers.
Okay. And kind of be because of for budgeting, and then they're like the training ground is their sell.
Right.
Okay.
And so how long were you in Ashland?
I was there for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I had taught every level, every grade. And I was like, okay, I want to mix it up. So I ended up, I was on my third maternity leave, and I got my license in special ed. Then I got hired in Hopkinton as a special educator. Did that for 3 years, then switched back to English to 8th grade, then switched down to 6th grade, which is where I am right now.
You're currently teaching 6th grade. When you said you taught everything in Ashland, do you literally mean like kindergarten through high school?
Oh, no, high school. Just high school.
Just high school.
So freshman to senior.
Okay.
Co-taught special ed, co-teaching to honors.
Okay.
So like every level and every grade.
Is it hard, like switching year to year or class to class?
I mean, I personally like the change, not every year, but every 3 or 4 years I like to change. There's some teachers who want to teach the same thing for 25 years. That would be madness for me.
Okay. Because it feels like Groundhog Day, you mean?
Gosh, brutal, yes.
Yeah,
and things, you can make changes, but at the same time, it's hard to keep it fresh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Even though it's fresh for the students, it's not exactly fresh for you.
Yeah, and you're like, didn't I just say that?
Yeah.
No, that was last year.
But like, I can imagine going from like an honors class in the same day or week to a non-honors class and just being like going at the wrong pace. Do you, like?
Yeah, well, I would. I mean, you figure it out, but like for example, when I was in Ashland, I taught 10th grade, co-taught like a special ed kind of class, and then I taught 11th grade honors. So you're teaching different books, you're teaching different styles of writing, you're working with a co-teacher, and I found I actually enjoyed that more than honors, where it was just me and the kids. It's great to have a colleague in the class with you and work with the kids a little more one-to-one or small group than whole group, like you and 25 kids.
Yes. And so now you said you are teaching 6th grade.
Now I'm in 6th grade, yeah.
English?
It's considered writing. So in 6th grade in Hopkinton, you actually take 2 English classes in 6th grade. You take a reading class and a writing class.
Okay.
They double up. And then when you get to 7th grade, it's just all together because you also add on a foreign language.
And, all right, wow.
So I just teach writing for about 45 minutes a day, 5 times.
Right, to 5 different groups of
kids. So like
kids.
105 kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you, like, you never taught elementary?
Never taught elementary.
Okay.
No, I'm qualified to teach 5 to 12.
Okay.
And special ed 5 to 12.
Special ed 5 to 12.
Yeah.
And did you, like, why was that? How'd you make that decision?
That's just, so in education, you can take, well, in your graduate school, you either do like elementary or you do like 5 to 12. And then when you take all the tests, it's like geared towards the elementary teachers. They have to know all of the subjects. Not at a very high level, but they have to be familiar with math and science.
Yeah, a lot of breath.
And their tests are related to that.
And you knew, like, I liked English and writing. I want to stay in this.
Yes. That's my strength. And, like, I have colleagues who will be like, can you look over this email for me before I send it to this parent? Whereas I wouldn't know what to do in a lab.
Not for you.
No.
Not for you. Did you think... Obviously, when you were at BU, you were pursuing journalism. And I didn't really hear, like, what was the epiphany towards teaching through it? Like, you said coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I realized that I didn't want to be writing about other people. I wanted to, like, be involved in a different kind of way. So I just felt like teaching, I could still write and read and talk about all of that and have the opportunity to work with kids. So once I started coaching, I was like, this is great. This is like, you tell them something and the next day they get it. It's like they're sponges. So I just loved that. It took me a long time to get there. Now, I will say my mother was a teacher.
Okay.
So I just never had that click.
Yeah.
Until I guess when I was 21, 22, I was like, oh yeah, that actually seems
makes
like a great
makes
idea.
Sense. Yeah. What was your mom's feedback on that decision?
Duh.
Yeah. Right. Do you feel like now? I'm not. I still feel like a newbie in town, even though I'm not. I think it's just because I don't have kids like through the system. But I know you're involved heavily in like women's lacrosse, and I know your son baseball, all that kind of stuff. Like, what are you coaching today?
So I don't coach my older daughter anymore, but I coached her in lacrosse for 6, 7 years, something like that, and I ran the program.
Yes.
I was president of girls lacrosse, and now I coach the 3-4 team. So
Okay.
my youngest daughter, and then I coach basketball in the winter.
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
That's right.
And
That's
I've
what I was
always
hearing
done
about.
a mix of that with all 3 kids. So I don't know if I'll maybe assist my son's team this year. I don't know what'll happen, but I'll definitely coach the girls.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I like kind of feel like the amount of times you've said working with students one-on-one, smaller groups, I feel like in your day-to-day job, it's like there is like the teaching part, but then there's a lot of it's coaching.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean at school?
Yeah, like at school. Like,
Definitely. It's about like building the kids up, building relationships. Like you're not just like at any job. If you don't like the person you're working for or with, you're not going to work that hard. You're not going to get that much better, right? You're just going to do, go through the motions. But if you have a relationship with that person, you're going to work harder for them. So that's what, like being a good educator, that's like the foundation of it. Getting to know the kids. That's really what the first month is about. You can teach them curriculum, but they're not really going to engage unless they know you're invested in them. And I think the younger they are, the more important that is.
Right.
So like at 6th grade, it's like, what are you doing after school? Who are you hanging out with? What are your interests? And they're very passionate about whatever they're into in 6th grade. They're like, yes, super focused on their passions. So it's great. Once you hear about that, then you can ask them about it and somehow weave it into the curriculum. In writing, it's so easy to do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're just getting ammo for future assignments.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so did you, would 24-year-old Rachel be surprised at what you're doing today?
I think so. I mean, working with young kids. I mean, 6th grade is pretty young.
Yeah.
I think when I went
What are
into
you, 12?
They're 12,
Yeah.
11, 12.
Okay.
I mean, there's some of them are still crying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of emotions in 6th grade. Whereas when I first got into teaching, and I was teaching juniors and seniors, and I was helping them write their college applications, and I was writing letters of recommendation and talking to them about how they were going to change the world. And now it's such a different perspective. But I love it, and I think that change makes you better in your job. If you're just doing the same thing every day for years,
Yes.
how are you growing?
Right. So how do you apply that same mindset to your personal life? Because it's hard to have change with 3 kids and a job
Yeah.
and somewhat of a hobby once in a while.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess that's why I wake up early. That's my time.
You're an early riser.
Yeah, so we were just on vacation over the weekend in Maine, and I naturally wake up at 5. So I just went for a walk on the beach by myself, or I went for a run one day by myself, and that, I don't know, that's my time.
Your time is at the crack of dawn.
Yes.
Yes. When I first joined the gym,
Yes.
and I begrudgingly figured out that 5 a.m. was the only class that worked with my young family.
Right.
You were there.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there are other lunatics here.
Yeah. I mean, if the golf course was open at 5, forget about it. I'd
That
probably
would-
quit everything else.
And just do that
Yeah.
when it was warm out. I know that whole grass cutting thing really gets in the way.
Yeah.
It really gets in the way. But you're up. I think morning routines are really interesting. So you're up at the crack, obviously exercising.
Yeah.
And then you're home to kids that are sleeping or waking up.
Yeah, it depends on the day and the situation. My oldest is going into high school. She's 14, and she's super independent and driven. And so sometimes she will wake up early to get ready for the day.
Okay.
So sometimes she's up, but the other 2 are a little more slothful, and they'll be sleeping. And then my husband is sleeping.
So do you have 14, 12, 10?
14,
9,
12, 9. Yeah.
9. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a wide range of needs, and I drive the 2 oldest ones to school with me, so that's a whole nother
Situation.
dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, as they say, little kids, little problems, big kids, bigger problems. It's just different problems. I feel like just fighting for shotgun and dealing with emotions of children going through changes.
Yes. Oh, I can imagine. Do you feel like you kind of have a, you know how there's no training manual for parenting?
Yeah.
And you're talking obviously to a dude who has, no maternal instincts either. So I hope this doesn't sound like the most ignorant question in the world, but did your formal education training, do you feel like that gave you a leg up on dealing with challenges at all stages of like through 14, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I do think, we took all those like adolescent psych classes in grad school. And I think through teaching, it definitely changed my perspective. But I think also having kids made me a better teacher. So there's kind of like a balance. Like now that I have kids and I've seen what they're like at home, I have so much more empathy for the kids in my classroom. Whereas I think when I first got into teaching and I was 25 years old and the kids were 17, I didn't have enough life experience. I could teach them about Gatsby and the Scarlet Letter, but I couldn't really tell them all of the things that I've learned as a parent. So I think it's a good balance. Like as an educator, I think we understand kids more, and then vice versa. So I don't know if my temperament has really changed or anything. I'm still the same person I was.
Do you feel like you have to knowing you're a competitive person, like super competitive. Mm-hmm. But I would articulate you're like really competitive with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I just remember like, I feel like running, I noticed it less because I couldn't breathe. So I was just trying to keep up. But I feel like when we were at the gym, you always like knew what you did previously at that time and just wanted to improve. Even if it was, how do you like handle competitiveness in like an educator role though?
Yeah, I would say that's probably the one aspect of my life where there's no scoreboard. It's really like, whether or not you did a good job that day or whether you like made...
Like in your gut.
Yeah, that like you made a difference with that kid. That kid was crying. That kid had struggled. That kid didn't get any sleep over the weekend because of home situations. So you're helping the kids, but it's one area of my life where I'm not super competitive because in education, it's very different than corporate world.
Right.
You're not getting bonuses for doing a good job. It's all internal, like your own gratification.
Yes.
So there's not really that competitive nature of the rest of my life.
Yeah, but you don't like find it's easy for you to. No, I don't want to say turn that switch off because I don't think it's binary. But.
No, I do. It's like every year at the end of your school year, you get your feedback from your evaluator, and it's like, it's great when you get positive feedback, but like it's not financially changing anything, right?
Right.
It's just you have to be in education because you want to do good. You're not in education to make a ton of money.
Right.
There has to be that other benefit, otherwise you'll be miserable.
Right.
Because you're not getting a bonus. You're getting maybe a pat in the back, and maybe not. Other people might not even notice that you made a difference, other than just that kid.
But when you hit the pillow at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's about.
Right.
Yeah. That's. It makes a ton of sense. Do you see, like early, like people when they get out of grad school and start teaching that they can't do that? Like it's not for them, or do they weed them out through that process?
Yeah, I think that I've seen a lot of people leave teaching, especially during the COVID years and right after from burnout, and they're looking for that corporate position because they can't handle the lack of feedback or just rewards, right? But I think most people go into education because they want to do good.
Which makes a ton of sense. Were the people that my aunt was a teacher and for years, and that is her to a T. So, do you like the COVID burnout thing is so interesting? Were they people kind of on the back nine of their careers that were burning out, or was it all?
I think it was from it was a lot of parents of young children. People who were working really long hours and then also had the struggle at home. And I think they were like, I can't do this all day. I can't do this at work and then also do this at home. I think it was just too much. So I have a couple friends of mine a couple dads who left. They were like, I can't deal with the stress of it. A lot of special educators, they're just, with cuts and budget issues and putting so much on certain people. And then I think also the kids were struggling. And I think we're kind of coming out of that now, but there was a lot of behavior issues. So.
And are you talking like during the virtual teaching period, or are you also talking like
I think coming back, like
the
first year back when we were in masks and we were just trying to survive. And I think that it just got really intense. And I think the behaviors got real bad, especially that those. Well, I mean, I don't know, maybe
Like
in
K through
kindergarten
5,
too, but I
yeah.
think like we saw it in the middle school, just really like the kids weren't getting what they needed at home, and they weren't getting structure at home, so
Yeah.
they'd come in and they were a mess in
Yes.
school. Not all of them.
Yeah, no, but
some of
adapting
them.
to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because parents were trying to work, and so then they were not giving the kids, and the kids were home so much. It was like cats wandering the house.
Right.
So it was hard.
And I'm sure if I had to guess, not that I have any degree in psychology, but I'm sure boys struggled
Yeah.
more than girls.
I mean, we saw different reactions. I think boys, some had more behavior issues like outbursts, whereas girls had a lot of mental health struggles. I mean, I think we're still seeing it, but I think that the kids I'm seeing now don't have the effects that I saw the first year or two.
Interesting.
And I think that really crushed some teachers. They just were like,
Yeah.
I can't.
So behaviorally, you think we're like
Definitely turn the corner.
back to norm?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kids who struggled the most are now like juniors and seniors in high school.
Yeah, right. So they had to.
So
the world,
hopefully they figured it out. Yeah.
and got it together.
Yeah.
What about like on the purely aptitude side of it? Like,
Yeah, I think it's hard to judge because, we really went. I mean, my youngest went 40 days with no school because she was quarantining that much, and she was trying
That's
to learn
wild.
to read.
yeah,
So that was kindergarten.
helps having a teacher at
Right.
home.
Yeah. So I think that I don't know. It's so hard. Hopkins is such a competitive town.
Yes.
And the kids are so driven. It's so math, science focused in a good way. But I think like what a lot of people say, like kindergarten is the new first grade. Well, maybe like first grade became back to regular first grade because
Right.
we had missed a year. But I think everything has swung back. And
But do you feel like because you've taught for the amount of time you have,
yeah.
those like first, I guess we're in it, right? 2024. But like the first couple years, not the mask year.
Right,
But
yeah,
like
yeah.
22 and
Yeah.
3. Did you feel like the kids that were entering your classroom were, for lack of a better word, behind kids pre-COVID?
I think that the stamina, that was the word we used a lot, was like
Okay.
they didn't have the academic stamina anymore. They couldn't sit and write for 45 minutes. They just, because they had so much break time, so much sitting around time.
Yes.
That the intensity of school that we tried to get back to was hard to get back to. I would say we're back. I mean, we have
Yeah.
kids who are taking high school level honors, like 10th grade math in 8th grade. Like, we're teaching 7th graders Mandarin. We're we're back.
We're back. Okay, cool. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
I do think that the kids, like the kids that were in kindergarten who are now in 4th grade,
Yes.
who missed a quarter of the year.
that's our children, yeah.
Yeah, they probably needed more remediation. But I know in Hopkinton at least we got a lot of grants for extra support,
Okay.
but that's now gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was fortunate that was my studious son
Yeah.
that was involved in that.
right, yeah, same.
Yeah, so at least it worked out
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you, God.
Yeah.
But do you, like, I'd be interested as an educator, like, I think, so the podcast, the inspiration for the podcast was I was meeting all of these people through my job, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they were loving what they did, and they never went to college for it in the corporate world, or they had started out down some career path and made a serious deviation, or a lot of micro ones along the way, but they like what they did, and I like that juxtaposed my dad being like, every time I came home from college, being like, what are you going to be when you grow up? And being like, I don't know, Dad. Like, I just am trying to play lacrosse and
Yeah.
get a good grade. I don't know. And I just was like, man, I feel like kids, high school, college kids, should be able to hear from people who have lived lives and enjoy what they do and not feel the pressure of deciding at age 18 or 22 what I'm going to do the rest of my life, because it really doesn't matter. So the reason I wanted to have you on was we haven't had an educator on. I think it's interesting that you didn't go to school right away for education. You went for journalism. But like, with all that said, I also think what I'm trying to say is the demographic that we hope listens to the podcast and does listen to the podcast is probably under 35, I would say, for the most part, except for friends of guests that like to listen. Right. And I find out that a lot of times I'll have guests on and they're like, I can't wait for my kids to listen to this because they had no idea that I did all these things. But like, what as an educator, like you have that front row seat and have children of in that critical kind of age. And I'm saying critical, I guess because my kids are about the same age, but just like in the transition of elementary to middle to high school, like what tips or what do you see is like helpful for the parents in supporting that journey?
Well, I think that there's talk about getting away from like, what do you want to be when you grow up, or like, what are you want to do? What are some things you want to do? As opposed to like, I want to be an astronaut. Like that's one job. But many of us go through so many different jobs and so many different careers that's really limiting.
Yes.
So the idea is like, what are things that you want to do? Like what are goals you have?
Yes.
As opposed to, what do you want to be? Do you want to be an orthodontist? Like,
right.
And it's impossible to ask a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old, like, what do you want to be?
I think sometimes a 25-year-old.
Right. Yeah. So I think that, like, just setting your kids up for success, just like you would want for yourself, is the best thing that you can do. Like, make sure that they have a good balance of education and extracurricular and downtime, and not focus so much on the end goal.
Yes.
Like, becoming an orthodontist or whatever you're going to be, right? Like, I see this with my 14-year-old. She's like already stressing about what she wants to write on her college essay. And she's like, Mom, I just have not gone through a big struggle yet. Like, well, you're 14 and you live in this wonderful community. It's like not that big of a surprise. You haven't had a major life struggle. It'll happen. It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to write this until you're 17. Like,
right. And you don't
give
want
it a
to
couple
wish
years.
it on yourself just so you can write a college essay.
And she's already thinking about where she wants to go to school and where she's going to live. And it's like, what
And
about high school?
Do you think the town
Enjoy
does that? Is that the culture of the town?
I think it's probably the town. I think it's being a firstborn.
Okay.
I think that is, we parented her so differently than we parented our youngest.
Yeah.
Or middle.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is like, you learn, it's too bad because you learn so much from your first child.
So much.
And it's too bad you can't apply it to them.
I know.
Because you've already messed up. But she's turned out great.
Yeah.
So
It's
she'll be fine.
But do you like what of the children that you see that are successful in school, what do the parents tend to do either from a fostering an environment or providing structure? Like what are there quick things that come to mind that you see like kind of as common denominators?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the kids that I remember and that I'm gonna recommend and like would say, let this person into your college or whatever, are the people who are truly kind. Will come into your class, say good morning. We'll leave your class and say thank you. I had a student who said thank you, have a great day, every single day. Yeah. And just is like kind to their classmates and respectful. And that's going to get you so much further in life than getting 100 on everything. Because if you get 100 on everything and you're not that kind and you don't see the world around you, which is hard when you're in 6th grade, which is what I teach now. But that's so important. And that's just like modeling that good behavior.
Yes. Yeah. So modeling it at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not, I find that so interesting when you could have gone like, well, like my best students are doing extra math at home, or I think like the competitive mindset in me goes, they're spending more time, when in your first reaction was like, oh no, they're good people.
Well, that's what you're going to remember, right? You're not going to remember. I mean, the scores, your test scores in 6th grade, not going anywhere. No one's looking at anything from middle school, and even high school, your teachers aren't going to remember that you got a 92 on that test. They're going to remember, were you a good student? Were you paying attention? Were you like a positive member of the school community? Yes. That's going to take you so much further. Yes. And think about like the people that are leaders. They're leaders because they like make connections with all the people around them. They're positive all the time. Yeah. They have a setback and they bounce back from it. Right. Not that they got a perfect score on their vocab quiz.
Right. If anything, it's usually pretty ugly. Right. They're just grinding away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my husband was not a great student, and he's doing quite well for himself after college.
Right. It's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
That's so wild. How have you? I guess 2-part question, because I've got you here. How have you seen like? I'm interested in just your overall take on social media because you taught really kind of before the advent of the craziness. Now you teach with it, and kids have devices.
Right.
So that would be like my first question, and the second would be like, knowing what you know, how do you handle it in your own home?
Yeah, I would say that I almost feel like the younger kids are maybe more well equipped than the adults around us. Like I see people in their 60s and 70s who are looking at their phone all day long and missing the world around them. And I do feel like kids, if they're taught the right way, can put their phone aside and have like better attention than the adults around them. Because that's what they've grown up with. I think it's so interesting with kids how they use devices. I mean, my oldest daughter, uses it 100% for like communication, like texting with friends and making connections. And she'll FaceTime her best friend in the morning, getting dressed every day. Which is like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You were on the phone with your best friend for 3 hours. What were you talking about? I don't know.
Right.
Whereas my son is using his phone to watch sports highlights and like dumb golf videos. Like ironically bad golf tips.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, personally, we have screen time limits. We check in with them about what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I would say we have downtime, so they can't use their phone between like whatever it is, 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they also have limits on
the volume they can use per day.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't freak you out as an educator? Like
I've seen bad things. Like I'd say right now we're in the midst of the beginning of like AI getting involved in like, we had a situation this year with kids using AI to create nude pictures of their classmates, which is like borderline, I don't know if that falls under like child pornography issues, things like that.
Harassment.
Exactly. And then we have had other people taking pictures of people.
Yes.
So I've seen all that, but I don't know. It doesn't stress me out as much. I think if you raise a good kid, they're going to make mistakes, but like they're going to figure it out.
Right.
I don't know.
As they go,
and if your kid is a mess, they're probably going to be a mess online also.
Right. So I should really check the text messages I send to you now because I write so poorly. I write like I talk, and
a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I'm the only one. Every time I do voice to text, I'm like, and period. And my daughter's like, why are you punctuating your text messages? I'm like, I can't help it. I need to add a comma here.
I'm ingrained.
Yeah.
Are you? Because like, I would say the use case for me with AI, but definitely from a job standpoint, has been writing.
Yeah.
I think most of it is writing, but I'm not also writing like, it's a lot of facts and context. It's not, or excuse me, content. I'm not.
Right, using style and everything,
I'm not sharing my thesis on something.
Right, it's going to be really interesting to see where that goes because we're just at the forefront of where kids have the opportunities to take information from Grammarly, for example, and just use that as their 5-paragraph essay.
I know.
So it's really, I think the technology is keeping up. There seems to be a lot of ways to figure out if a kid has written it or not. But at the same time, you also want to teach them how to use these tools correctly because these things are not going around. It's like an online dictionary. It's so much better than the paper one. You don't have to thumb through it.
Yes.
So we got to figure out how to use these tools in a positive way.
Yes. So do you think that there's probably, like, if you flash forward to the future, AI is probably part of the writing curriculum?
Yes, definitely. And
Maybe
if you
not
don't think so, then you're
going to get left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the technology is not going away.
Yes.
Just like the way in which we research is so different now. And now we're looking at like the depths of research as opposed to like you can find a lot of information on Google, but then we're teaching them, well, what's a reliable source?
Yes.
And how can you dig deeper than just like surface level Wikipedia?
It makes sense. That's interesting. I'm glad I got the opportunity to ask a person who has to deal with writing too. Yeah, because I was wondering how that would be.
Yeah.
And those weak moments you had in high school when you were like, oh my God, I didn't do my homework.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
Got
let's
back from a
check Cliff
game at
Notes.
11. Yeah, right, exactly. I'm going to read The Great Gatsby in 12 minutes and miss all of it.
Yeah. I do think at the younger grades, like with your sons, they're not dealing with AI yet because they're not using devices all the time to write.
No,
so at least the introductory stages, they're figuring out how
and I don't know if we're terrible or we'll find out if we handled it well, but like our kids don't have devices yet.
That's great.
So like they're just like kind of numb to it, or like video game consoles. Like I listen to
You don't have video games?
No. I know. We had a Super Nintendo that my wife got me when I was like 25.
Okay.
As like a joke to play Mario because we used to play it in our dorm together.
Right.
And that finally broke this summer. And
do you feel like your kids go to other kids' houses and they're like, oh my gosh?
Yes, they love it.
Right.
I drove them to camp this week, a couple buddies with my oldest, and they were talking about Fortnite in the back. And my son is talking about Fortnite like he has his PhD in it. Mm-hmm. And we got in the car later. I was like, haven't you played it like 3 times? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So he's super in it. I know it's coming.
Yeah, because I grew up in a house where like my mom never had soda, so then I feel like I binge at other people's houses. So I just wonder, what it's like for kids who don't grow up with devices.
Yes.
And
I know we need to like incorporate them through it, but like they'll take an iPad and we'll put a game on the iPad and we'll do that. And like if you give it to them though, they do like my youngest will get so sucked in that when you go take it away, it's a problem.
Yeah. So keep it away as long as you can.
Exactly. It's a serious balancing act.
Yeah.
I probably got to know you more over the last like 3 years than I did before, but you're involved in like a ton of stuff, obviously in town, extracurriculars, raising kids. Like for you, what drives you? Because you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
You don't have to do all those things, and I feel like you do a lot, even as it pertains to like, just going to your friend's fundraiser for a marathon. It's like I know enough about you to know that a Wednesday night at a bar to raise money is not ideal for the 4:40 a.m. wake up the next day. So like for you, how do you do that? Or like what is the motivating factor behind doing it? Because I know you have discipline, obviously, but like, do you ever reflect on like, why am I doing all of this?
I would say, in terms of like competitive spirit, I do think some of it is like just you're born with it.
Okay.
So I think I was born with some drive.
Yes.
And then I think being like good but not amazing at everything has driven me to like push. And I don't know if everyone feels like that, but like I always had 1 or 2 people who were better than me in things. And I was just like, can I catch them? Can I catch them? And that's like been my life. And I will say in the last, maybe since COVID, maybe the last 10 years, I've really embraced JOMO, the joy of missing out, as opposed to FOMO.
Yes.
And I'm trying to say no more.
Yes. To keep your sanity.
And it's becoming easier as I get older.
Yes. Do you find also motivation in just being... Like I've found recently, like really recently, last 2 years, probably last year, like not wanting to do things like go to the gym or, I don't know, go to this event, but I know I need to go as a role model for my kids. Does that?
What I'm doing, like exercising, playing sports, I don't really think about other people watching
it's for
me.
you. Yeah.
Like,
I don't think about them watching me. I just think about them like when I walk through the door coming home in the morning. They're like, oh, yeah, Dad went out.
Oh, I don't even think about that.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully at some point in their brain, they're like, oh, yeah, Mom ran a bunch of marathons. Oh, Mom played Division I sports. Like, at some point, they're like, that's kind of cool.
Right.
I don't really.
We just document it so they can listen now.
I don't.
Yeah.
That doesn't
do
matter to me
you
at all.
keep,
I just do it for me. I just do it.
So why keep running marathons?
I just want to get better.
For the time?
Yeah. I just want to, I mean, I know that also it definitely helps my mental health.
Yes.
100%. Like being active in the morning sets my day. So it's really hard for me to take a rest day because I know I'm not going to feel right all day long.
You feel like you missed out on something.
Not missed out. It's just I haven't expended the energy.
Yeah, I
And if
find
I
myself
don't
more irritable.
Yeah, I'm more irritable and I feel sloth-like. So even if it's a day where I'm like, I have to rest and I go like lift a little bit, I still feel like I haven't burned off enough energy to be in like a right state of mind.
Okay.
So I think as I get older, I'm going to have to figure something out because I probably can't run marathons for the rest of my life.
Although
Maybe
people
I
do
can.
it. Some people do it.
But I would say like the drive I have, like I really want to get better at golf. Like I really want to win some tournaments. I really want to get better. But that's just That's me, not to like show my kids that I can be good at golf.
I'm the
it has
same
nothing
way.
to do with anybody but me.
Yes. I feel like golf has a really good way of finding those people. People that are addicted to golf are just straight up addicted to getting better.
Yeah.
And for the most part. I mean, there's always the people that are there just slamming 12 packs.
Right.
But like I'd say the vast
That's
the vast majority of people are like addicted to the
Yes.
pursuit of perfection that is basically unattainable.
Right. I mean, I just want to play bogey golf.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be amazing if I played 18 bogeys. Like, that'd be great.
It's doable.
Yeah,
It's
I'm hoping.
doable. It's
I'm
doable.
hoping.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Rachel Stevenson, thank you for coming on the podcast. I told you 45 minutes would not be hard at all.
Thanks for having me.
No, it was a pleasure,
Yeah.
and I'll see. I promise I'll get back out running soon.
If not, I'll see you at the golf course.
All right, perfect.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sounds good.